Hello, Master Manifester. Today we're talking about manifestation and the expansion of collective awareness socially in the greater system. And how does it affect the intentions that you set, the outcomes you get, and how satisfied you are with those outcomes, with those story points, really. We say outcomes, but they're really story points in a constantly evolving trend of our characters, of our lives. And we have our individual ones, and we have the greater social system ones in the human sense. And then we have the world ones, and then we have the universe ones, and who knows what else, right? But let's just start locally, okay? So let's just start with just the human systems in the collective consciousness. So some of the evolving trends that I have noticed is that we seem to be at the tipping point of spiritual awakening. And what that is to me from a science-based perspective, because I use science to explain spiritual concepts, not to try to refute them, is that I believe it is our mental filters widening and opening our understanding of more systems beyond ourselves, of recognizing our interconnectedness and our connection to ourselves, our greater, larger system, that we are not just Stacy or Jeff, that we are not just this character and this person, that we are actually expanding into these observer modes and in recognizing what our system does and how it's automated, right? And then we have our collective connection to each other through the internet that you are able to hear, so many people talk about their personal stories, their personal perspectives, in which we're actually sort of developing not exactly a hive mind, but a much more interconnected perspective of situations because our mental filters, like in the reticular activating system in the brain, is is allowing us to see more of other people's stories, to see and experience more of what other people experience so we can widen our perspectives, right? But we're also experiencing our collective shadows, the darker parts, or even the less known positive parts of our collective unconscious, everything that is connected like neurons in a quantum brain. And it's almost like a collective defrag process where everything's getting reorganized. And I wonder if this actually has, things to do with the Mandela effect and why we're experiencing different realities at different times, because we've become so many that all of our minds collectively are sort of in this disorganized state. And I feel like the system is automatically sort of bringing all these dark things up and showing them in the light. And people think that it's more dark things, but it's actually not. They were already there. The social systems, the oppression, the pain, the suffering, the predatory nature of certain programs, all of these things were already there, but we couldn't see them. We didn't know they were there. Our filters were not broad enough yet. They were not refined enough yet for us to recognize these connections. And we're also getting a lot more instant field interactions because as we move through the defrag and everything starts to become more cohesive and aligned, then we're going to start seeing more of uh, the synchronicities because everything happens faster. Like it's like our system got cleaned up, right? Our entire system, not just our internal system, which is also going through its own defrag process, but our greater collective system. So if you're seeing a lot more, synchronicities, especially with other people, and like I've seen it where people are just saying exactly what I was thinking. And I'm like, wait a minute, are they reading my mind or am I reading theirs? What's happening? Am I manifesting you or are you manifesting me? See, we are one brain and these neurons can connect from vast distances. They're just doing different jobs. And just like neurons, we're also like the subatomic particles in a quantum field, right? We're filled with all this potential. And once we've collapsed into a particular character, a particular physical state, we can still adjust our movements because the only constant is change and adaptability. And we are doing this collectively together. And it can be really challenging because even if you understand a system, that does not make it less visceral, less feeling. And when the suffering or the interactions we see, what we perceive as the injustice in the system, it can be very raw. And I mean, I've even likened it to feeling like an internal cheese grater. Like it's can be that difficult to feel these emotions, right? Because our consciousness is getting bigger. Our hard drives are getting bigger. We're getting upgrades in space and in awareness and in what our processes can manage, right? So optimizing these interactions as we expand together is really the key here. Recognizing your internal boundaries, realizing that boundaries are not about controlling other systems. They're about protecting your energy, your system, your cohesion, your continued growth. Okay. Power over is never a win, only power within. You want power over yourself, not other systems. So boundaries are always for you. You can tell people about them if you want, but that is not a command for them to do something. Now, this goes into alignment and coherence. Okay. So you can be aligned and coherent, which is the goal. And if you see this Venn diagram here, okay, of what the alignments and coherence is, then you can see where the sweet spot is for you to be aligned with something. So the trap is when you are aligned and you're not coherent. And the alignment is the agreement of values, the agreement of priorities, the agreement of how the system will run. And the coherence is how well the system runs day to day, right? How these two systems work together. You are your system, and now we have this other person who is an external system. How well do these systems function together without friction, without damage, without holding each other back, without being dysregulated systems, right? And a lot of time you'll get something that feels very aligned. You have the same values, you have the same vision, you have, a lot of attunement there, but then you don't work well together. Or you can get the reverse. You get misaligned and you don't have the same values, but your systems work together. You see this a lot in the workplaces, actually. You can have a mess of people that do not have the same priorities or values, but somehow they can still coherently work if you force the systems to do it, which is not ideal, but we do what we do. We do what we can do here in the Matrix. But then the worst one, the total chaos, is when you are misaligned in values and you're incoherent in working together. This is where you need to try to get out because it's going to start wearing down your system. It's going to cause entropy where your system starts to degrade and break apart and it doesn't work together as well as it should because it's being too affected by outside systems. So this is like the worst case scenario is misaligned and incoherent. So the goal is aligned coherence with boundaries, with respect, with understanding that every system has value and no system is better than others. And let me tell you, comparison is the thief of joy in the biggest way, because to me, when somebody's like, oh, I'm better than you, oh, I have to feel better than you, or I have to feel better than them, or I did it better, all I can hear is insecurity, insecurity. My system is incoherent with itself. My system is seeking external validation. That's all I hear. I mean, I feel bad, but there's nothing I can do because it's not my system. And I maybe shouldn't feel bad for the system. Maybe it's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing right now in the moment. It just feels uncomfortable to me, right? This is the respect of other boundaries too. You have to respect other people's right to run their systems however they want or however they decide to, however the system decides to, mostly because we're like so automated. It's crazy. Unless you're in observer mode and you're like actively working with your system, monitoring your thoughts, your brain puts you on autopilot. This is simply how it works to save energy, to keep you healthy, to make your system make sense and to make it make sense within your environment. But it's important to know that, and recognizing that other people are automated too. You understand, well, I just need to figure out where my system is aligned and coherent and put myself in those situations, especially aligned and coherent for your intentions and your manifestation, right? And those identities, those predictive processes. So I hope this has helped you to understand a little bit more about what's going on in the collective expansion, what's going on in spiritual awakenings and expanding our awareness and our filters and understanding more of our interconnectedness and being able to see more of the divine in everyday life. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and sign up for the Method News newsletter in the description below.